The voice came through like broken glass cutting through silence. Get out of that car. Now. I froze at the wheel, my hands trembling against the leather, my foot still pressed on the gas pedal. The highway stretched ahead, empty and indifferent. My grandson Theo sat in the back seat, humming something soft, his little fingers wrapped around his favorite toy, a blue robot with one missing arm that he'd named Captain. I looked in the rearview mirror, expecting to see someone, maybe a hitchhiker I'd somehow missed, maybe a stranger who'd climbed into my car without me noticing. But there was nothing. Just Theo. Just the open road. Just the hum of the engine and the faint smell of pine, retry, continue please trees from the air freshener hanging off the mirror. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it, that maybe I was tired, that the 3-hour drive to my daughter's house was getting to me. But the voice had been so clear, so urgent, so real. Get out of that car. Now. I swallowed hard and glanced at Theo again. He was still playing, still humming, oblivious to the panic crawling up my spine. Then his toy spoke. The blue robot with the missing arm, the one that hadn't worked in weeks, the one whose batteries I'd removed myself, because Theo kept complaining it made weird sounds in the middle of the night. It spoke. Get out of that car, now. The exact same words. The exact same voice. I slammed on the brakes so hard the seatbelt cut into my chest. The car skidded to a stop on the shoulder, gravel crunching under the tires. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Theo looked up, confused. His little face scrunched in that way children do when they don't understand why adults suddenly act strange. Grandma, why'd we stop? I couldn't answer him. I was staring at that toy in his hands, at Captain with his chipped paint and missing arm, and I was trying to make sense of what had just happened. Before I dive in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories like this, please like and subscribe. It helps me keep sharing more. My name is Margaret. I'm 72 years old. I've lived in the same house in Ohio for 47 years, the house where I raised my 2 daughters, the house where my husband died 5 years ago from a heart attack he never saw coming. I'm a grandmother to 3 grandchildren, but Theo is the youngest, the one who still needs me, the one whose mother, my daughter Claire, works double shifts at the hospital and can't always be there. So I help. I drive him to school. I make him pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. I read him stories at night when Claire is too exhausted to keep her eyes open. And today, I was supposed to be driving him to Claire's new place 2 towns over, the apartment she'd moved into after her divorce, the place she said would be a fresh start. But now we were stopped on the side of the highway, and I was staring at a toy that shouldn't be able to speak, and my mind was racing through every rational explanation I could find. Maybe the batteries weren't actually removed. Maybe I'd misremembered. Maybe there was still some charge left, some glitch in the circuit that made it spit out random phrases. But that voice, that urgency, that command, it wasn't random, it was specific. It was a warning. I turned around in my seat, my neck stiff from the sudden movement, and I looked at Theo. Sweetheart, can I see Captain for a second? He handed it over without question, his trust in me absolute and unshaken. I turned the toy over in my hands, inspecting every inch of it. The battery compartment was still open, still empty. No batteries, no power source. Nothing that could explain what I'd just heard. My stomach twisted into a knot. I set the toy down on the passenger seat and looked out the windshield. The highway was still empty, no cars behind us, no cars ahead, just miles of asphalt cutting through farmland, the kind of landscape that feels endless and isolating at the same time. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe grief did strange things to people, made them hear voices, made them imagine warnings that weren't there. Maybe I was just a lonely old woman who missed her husband so much she was starting to crack. But then I heard it again. This time, it wasn't from the toy. This time, it was inside my head, clear as daylight, sharp as a knife. Get out of that car. Now. And this time, I listened. I unbuckled my seatbelt, opened the door, and stepped out onto the gravel. Theo called after me, his voice small and worried. "Grandma, where are you going?" I didn't answer. I walked around to the back of the car, my legs unsteady, my breath coming in short gasps. I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know what I expected to find, but something deep in my gut told me I needed to look. I needed to see. I popped the trunk, and that's when everything changed. The smell hit me first. Sharp, metallic, wrong. Like copper left out in the sun. I stepped back, my hand flying to my mouth, my stomach lurching. There, tucked behind Theo's booster seat and my overnight bag, was something I'd never put there. A gas can. A red plastic gas can. The kind you'd find in any garage, in any hardware store. But this one was leaking. A thin, clear liquid pooled at the bottom of the trunk, soaking into the carpet, spreading slowly toward the spare tire. My mind went blank for a second, then snapped back into focus with terrifying clarity. Gasoline. In my trunk. Leaking. And I'd been driving for over an hour with my grandson in the back seat. One spark, one wrong move, one moment of friction. We could have gone up in flames. I slammed the trunk shut and stumbled backward, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely grip my phone when I pulled it from my pocket. I dialed Claire. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Come on, Claire. Pick up. Pick up." Her voicemail clicked on. "Hey, it's Claire. Leave a message." I hung up and tried again. Still no answer. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I couldn't do either, because Theo was still in the car, still watching me through the window with those big, worried eyes. And I couldn't let him see me fall apart. I walked back to the driver's side, opened the door, and forced my voice to stay calm. "Theo, we need to get out of the car for a little bit, okay?" He tilted his head. "Why?" "Because Grandma needs to check something. Come on, sweetheart, let's go sit on the grass over there." He unbuckled himself and climbed out, clutching Captain in one hand and my fingers in the other. We walked a safe distance from the car, maybe 30 feet, and sat down on the shoulder where the grass was dry and prickly. Theo didn't ask any more questions. He just started picking at the grass, pulling up little tufts and tossing them into the wind. I stared at the car, at the trunk, at the road stretching out in both directions with no help in sight. Who put that gas can in my trunk? I hadn't been to a gas station in days. I hadn't filled up anything. I hadn't even opened the trunk since last week when I'd loaded groceries. So how did it get there? And why was it leaking? My mind raced through possibilities. An accident. Maybe someone at the store had mistakenly placed it in my car. But that didn't make sense. I would have noticed. I would have seen. Unless someone did it on purpose. The thought sent a cold wave through my chest. Someone wanted this to happen. Someone wanted me, or Theo, or both of us, in danger. But who? And why? I pulled out my phone again, and this time I called the police. The dispatcher answered on the second ring, her voice calm and professional. 911, what's your emergency? I explained as clearly as I could. The voice, the toy, the gas can, the leak. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she said, "Ma'am, stay where you are. I'm sending a unit to your location right now. Don't get back in the vehicle. Do you understand?" I understand. She stayed on the line with me until I saw the flashing lights in the distance, red and blue cutting through the bright afternoon. 2 officers stepped out of the patrol car, a man and a woman, both young. Both with faces that tried to look reassuring, but couldn't quite hide their concern. The woman knelt down next to Theo and smiled. "Hey there, buddy, what's your name?" "Theo, that's a great name. You doing okay?" He nodded, still clutching Captain. The male officer walked with me to the car. I showed him the trunk. He pulled on a pair of gloves, opened it carefully, and examined the gas can. His jaw tightened. "Ma'am, this wasn't an accident." I felt the ground shift under me. "What do you mean?" He pointed to the cap. "It's been loosened deliberately." "Not all the way off, but enough to let it leak slowly. And the placement, it's tucked in a way that suggests someone knew what they were doing. Someone wanted you to drive with this. My mouth went dry. Who would do that? That's what we need to figure out. Do you have any idea who might have had access to your vehicle recently? I thought hard. My car had been parked in my driveway for the past 2 days. I'd driven to the grocery store yesterday morning, then back home. I'd locked it. I always locked it. But Claire had a spare key. And so did my other daughter, Monica. And Monica's husband, Greg. My stomach twisted again. Greg. Greg who'd been acting strange lately. Greg who'd been asking about my will. Greg who'd shown up at my house unannounced last week and asked if he could borrow money. I'd said no. I'd said I didn't have it to give. He'd left without another word, his face tight, his eyes cold. Could it be him? The officer was watching me, waiting. Ma'am? I swallowed. There's someone, my son-in-law, but I don't know why he'd want to hurt me. We'll need his information. And we'll need to have your vehicle towed and inspected. You and your grandson can ride with us to the station. I nodded, numb. Theo stood up and took my hand again. Grandma, are we in trouble? No, sweetheart. We're safe now. But I wasn't sure I believed that. Because whoever put that gas can in my trunk wasn't done. And something told me this was only the beginning. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. Theo sat beside me in a plastic chair, swinging his legs, still holding Captain like a lifeline. The female officer, Officer Brennan, brought him a juice box and a coloring book. He accepted both with a quiet thank you and bent over the pages, his little fingers gripping a green crayon. I sat there watching him, my mind a tangled mess of fear and disbelief. Across from me, the other officer, Detective Ramos, leaned back in his chair with a notepad open in front of him. He'd asked me to walk him through everything again. The voice, the toy, the gas can. I did, slowly, carefully, trying not to sound like I was losing my mind. When I finished, he tapped his pen against the notepad. Mrs. Holloway, I want you to think carefully. Has anyone threatened you recently? Directly or indirectly? I shook my head. Not directly. But my son-in-law, Greg, he's been acting strange, asking for money, showing up unannounced. What kind of money are we talking about? Enough to make him desperate. He and my daughter Monica are going through some financial trouble. He asked me for $20,000. I told him I didn't have it. His eyebrows lifted slightly. And do you have it? I hesitated. Yes. I have savings. My husband left me a small life insurance policy. I've been careful with it. I was planning to leave it to my grandchildren. Detective Ramos wrote something down. And Greg knows this? I think so. Monica might have told him, or maybe he assumed. The room felt colder suddenly. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. Detective Ramos closed his notepad and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Mrs. Holloway, we're going to bring Greg in for questioning. In the meantime, I need you to think about where you and Theo can stay tonight. Somewhere safe. Somewhere Greg doesn't have access to. I thought of Claire's apartment. But Greg had been there before. He knew where it was. Then I thought of my neighbor, Ruth. Ruth, who'd been my friend for 30 years. Ruth, who had a guest room and a dog that barked at strangers. I'll call my friend Ruth. Good. And I'm going to assign an officer to check on you periodically, just as a precaution. I nodded, my throat tight. Theo looked up from his coloring. Grandma, can we go home now? Soon, sweetheart. Soon. But I wasn't sure when soon would be, or if home would ever feel safe again. Detective Ramos stood and walked me and Theo out to the lobby. Officer Brennan drove us to Ruth's house in her patrol car. Theo fell asleep on the way, his head resting against my shoulder. Captain clutched in his lap. Ruth opened the door before we even knocked. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. Margaret, what happened? Claire called me. She said something about the police. I stepped inside, my legs barely holding me up. Ruth, I need to stay here tonight. Maybe longer. Of course, of course. Come in, sit down. I'll make tea. Officer Brennan gave me her card and told me to call if anything felt off. Then she left, and it was just me, Theo, and Ruth in the quiet safety of her living room. Ruth brought me tea in a chipped mug that I'd given her years ago as a birthday gift. She sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap, waiting. I told her everything. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Greg always gave me a bad feeling. There was something in his eyes. Something cold. I know. But I never thought he'd go this far." Ruth reached over and squeezed my hand. "You're safe now. That's what matters." But I wasn't convinced. Because that voice, the one that had saved us, the one that had warned me, it hadn't come from Greg. It had come from somewhere else. Something else. And I didn't know if that made things better or worse. Theo stirred on the couch beside me, mumbling something in his sleep. I brushed his hair back from his forehead and whispered, "It's okay, sweetheart. Grandma's here." But as I sat there in the dim light of Ruth's living room, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was still watching, still waiting, and that whatever had started on that highway wasn't over yet. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind against the windows, every distant car engine made my heart jump. Theo slept soundly beside me in Ruth's guest bed, his breathing soft and even, his hand curled around Captain. I watched him in the darkness, memorizing the curve of his cheek, the way his eyelashes rested against his skin. I thought about how close we'd come, how one spark, one moment of carelessness, and he could have been gone. I could have been gone. And whoever did this would have gotten away with it. Called it an accident, a tragedy, a grandmother who wasn't paying attention. Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I grabbed it quickly, careful not to wake Theo. It was a text from Claire. "Mom, the police just left. They questioned Greg for 2 hours. He denied everything, said he hasn't been near your car, said you're imagining things because of grief." My chest tightened. I typed back with shaking fingers. "I'm not imagining anything, Claire. There was a gas can in my trunk. The police saw it." Her response came quickly. "I believe you, but Greg is furious. He's threatening to sue for defamation. Monica is siding with him. She says you're trying to destroy their marriage." I stared at the screen, the words blurring. My own daughter, my Monica, siding with him over me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call her and demand she listen, but I knew it wouldn't matter. She'd made her choice. I set the phone down and pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to hold back tears. Ruth's voice came softly from the doorway. "Margaret, you okay?" I looked up. She was standing there in her bathrobe, her gray hair loose around her shoulders. "I'm fine, just tired." She walked in and sat on the edge of the bed. "You don't have to pretend with me. I know what it's like to lose people, not to death, to choices." I let out a long breath. "Monica doesn't believe me." Ruth shook her head. "Monica's scared. Scared of losing her husband. Scared of being wrong. Give her time." "But I don't have time, Ruth. Someone tried to kill me and Theo today." "And if it wasn't Greg, then who was it? That's the question, isn't it?" She stood and patted my shoulder. "Try to get some rest. Tomorrow we'll figure this out." But sleep didn't come. Instead, I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind. The voice, the toy, the gas can. And then something else crept in. A memory. 2 weeks ago, Monica and Greg had come over for dinner. Theo had been there too, playing in the living room while the adults talked in the kitchen. At one point, Greg had excused himself to use the bathroom, but he'd been gone for a long time. Too long. And when he came back, he'd looked flustered, distracted. At the time, I'd thought nothing of it. But now I wondered. Had he gone into my garage? Had he taken my spare car key? Had he planned this even then? My stomach turned. I reached for my phone again and texted Detective Ramos. I remembered something. Greg was at my house 2 weeks ago. He had access to my garage. He could have made a copy of my key. The response came faster than I expected. We'll look into it. In the meantime, stay where you are. Don't go back to your house alone. I set the phone down and closed my eyes. But even in the darkness, I could still hear it. That voice. Get out of that car. Now. Who had spoken? And how had they known? The next morning, Ruth made pancakes. Theo ate 3, drowning them in syrup, his mood lighter than mine. He asked when we could go home, and I told him soon, even though I didn't know if that was true. Ruth sat across from me, sipping coffee, her eyes scanning my face. You look like you haven't slept in a week. I feel like it. She set her mug down. Margaret, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Okay? Do you believe in things we can't explain? I frowned. What do you mean? She leaned forward. That voice you heard. The one from the toy. What if it wasn't a coincidence? What if something, or someone, was trying to protect you? I wanted to dismiss it. I wanted to laugh it off as superstition, but I couldn't. Because deep down, I'd been thinking the same thing. Ruth continued. My grandmother used to say that people we love never really leave us. That when we're in danger, they find a way to reach us. Even if it doesn't make sense. I felt a chill run through me. You think it was? She shrugged. I don't know, but I think you should consider it. Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was Detective Ramos. Mrs. Holloway, we've got something. Greg's alibi doesn't check out. He said he was at work the day your car was parked at home, but his employer confirmed he called in sick. He was unaccounted for during the time frame when the gas can could have been placed. My heart pounded. So it was him. We're bringing him back in. But there's something else you should know. What? We found surveillance footage from a gas station near your neighborhood. Greg was there that morning. He purchased a gas can and a funnel. I felt the room tilt. He really did it. We're getting a warrant for his arrest. But Mrs. Holloway, I need you to stay vigilant. If he realizes we're closing in, he might try something desperate. I hung up and looked at Ruth. She'd heard enough of the conversation to understand. He's dangerous, Margaret. You can't go back to your house. Not yet. I nodded. But even as I agreed, a part of me was already planning. Because I wasn't going to hide forever. I wasn't going to let Greg or anyone take my life from me. Not after everything I'd survived. And whoever had warned me on that highway, whatever force had spoken through that toy, I had a feeling they weren't done protecting me yet. The call came at noon. Detective Ramos again, his voice tighter this time, stripped of the calm professionalism he'd maintained before. Mrs. Holloway, we have a problem. My stomach dropped. What happened? Greg's gone. He didn't show up for the follow-up questioning this morning. We sent officers to his house. He's not there. Monica says she hasn't seen him since last night. He told her he was going to stay with a friend, but she doesn't know who. We've issued a warrant, but right now, he's in the wind. I felt the blood drain from my face. So he knows you're coming for him. It looks that way, which means you need to be extremely careful. Do not go anywhere alone. Do not return to your house. And if you see him, call 911 immediately. I hung up and turned to Ruth. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, dish towel in hand, her face pale. Greg's missing. She dropped the towel. Oh, God. I need to call Claire. I dialed her number with shaking hands. She answered on the first ring, her voice frantic. Mom, have you heard? He's gone. Monica is losing her mind. She keeps saying he didn't do anything, that he's just scared because the police are harassing him. I tried to keep my voice steady. Claire, listen to me. Greg is dangerous. You need to make sure your doors are locked. You need to keep Theo close. I know, Mom, I know. But Monica won't listen. She thinks you're overreacting. She thinks you're trying to ruin her life. My heart cracked. Claire, I would never. I know, I believe you. But she doesn't. And I don't know how to reach her anymore. We stayed on the line for a moment, neither of us knowing what to say. Finally, Claire spoke. Mom, do you think he'll come after you? I don't know, but I'm not taking any chances. Promise me you'll stay with Ruth. I promise. After I hung up, I sat down at the kitchen table and put my head in my hands. Ruth came over and placed a hand on my shoulder. We'll get through this, Margaret. Somehow. But the fear was suffocating, because Greg wasn't just missing. He was out there, somewhere, knowing the walls were closing in, and desperate people do desperate things. That afternoon, Officer Brennan stopped by to check on us. She assured me there were patrols in the area, that they were watching Ruth's house, that I was safe, but I could see it in her eyes. She was worried too. Theo and I spent the afternoon in Ruth's backyard. He played with her dog, a golden retriever named Biscuit, while I sat on the porch steps, my phone in my lap, waiting for news. The sun was warm, the sky was blue, and everything looked so normal. But nothing felt normal. Around 4, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You should have given me the money." My hands went cold. I stared at the screen, my breath caught in my throat. Another text came through. "Now you've left me no choice." I screamed for Ruth. She came running, and I showed her the phone. She grabbed it, her face going white. "We need to call the police. Now." I dialed Detective Ramos. He answered immediately, and I read him the texts. "He's trying to intimidate you. Don't respond. We're tracing the number now. But Margaret, I need you to pack a bag. We're moving you to a safe location." "What? Where?" "Somewhere he can't find you. I'll have officers there in 20 minutes. I hung up and looked at Theo. He was still playing, still oblivious, still innocent. Ruth put her arm around me. "It's going to be okay." But I wasn't sure I believed that anymore. Because Greg wasn't just desperate. He was hunting us. And I had no idea when or where he'd strike next. The safe house was a small cabin tucked into the woods, about 40 miles from Ruth's place. It smelled like cedar and dust, and the windows were covered with thick curtains that blocked out most of the light. Officer Brennan drove us there herself, checking the rearview mirror every few minutes, making sure we weren't followed. Theo sat quietly in the back seat, sensing the tension even if he didn't understand it. When we arrived, another officer was already there, standing by the door with his arms crossed. His name was Officer Hayes, a tall man with silver hair and a kind face. He nodded at me as we walked in. "You'll be safe here, Mrs. Holloway. We've got surveillance set up and someone will be on watch the entire time." "Thank you." He glanced at Theo, who was clutching Captain and looking around the cabin with wide eyes. "There's a bedroom in the back. Might be more comfortable for the little one." I took Theo's hand and led him to the bedroom. It was small but clean, with a single bed covered in a faded quilt and a nightstand with a lamp. I helped him settle in, tucking Captain under the covers beside him. "Grandma, why are we hiding?" I sat on the edge of the bed and brushed his hair back. "Because sometimes, sweetheart, people make bad choices, and we have to stay safe until things get better." "Is Uncle Greg a bad person?" My throat tightened. "I don't know, Theo, but I hope he makes the right choice soon." Theo nodded, accepting my answer the way children do, with trust that shouldn't be taken for granted. He closed his eyes, exhausted from the day, and within minutes, he was asleep. I walked back out to the main room. Officer Brennan was sitting at the small kitchen table, her radio crackling softly. Officer Hayes stood by the window, watching the tree line. I poured myself a glass of water and sat down across from Brennan. "Any updates?" She shook her head. "Not yet. But we've got units searching for him. He can't hide forever." I wanted to believe that. But Greg had always been smart, calculating. If he was planning something, he'd wait for the right moment. Hours passed, the sun set, and the cabin grew dark except for the glow of a single lamp in the corner. I tried to rest, but every sound, every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside made my heart race. Around midnight, Officer Hayes's radio crackled to life. "All units, we've got a possible sighting. White male, mid-30s, spotted near the Holloway residence. Proceed with caution." My blood ran cold. "He's at my house." Brennan stood up, her hand on her weapon. "Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except us." And then they were gone, leaving me alone in the cabin, with Theo asleep in the next room. I locked the door, checked the windows, and sat down on the couch with my phone in my hand. Minutes felt like hours. I kept checking the time, watching the screen, waiting for news. Then a sound, Faint, distant, a car engine. I stood up, my body tense, my breath shallow. The sound grew louder, closer. I moved to the window and peeked through the curtain. Headlights, coming up the dirt road toward the cabin. My heart pounded. It couldn't be Greg. He didn't know where we were. Did he? The car stopped in front of the cabin. The headlights went off. The engine died. I backed away from the window, my hands shaking. A door opened. Footsteps on gravel. A knock at the door. Margaret, it's me. Claire. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding and rushed to unlock the door. Claire stepped inside, her face pale and tear-streaked. Mom, I had to see you. I had to make sure you were okay. How did you know where I was? She hesitated. Detective Ramos told me. He said you were in protective custody. I needed to see you. I hugged her tightly, relief flooding through me. Then I pulled back and looked at her. Where's Monica? Still at home. With Greg? Claire shook her head. No, he's not there. No one knows where he is. And Monica, she's falling apart. She keeps saying this is all her fault, that if she'd just listened to you, none of this would have happened. I felt a pang of sympathy for my daughter. Despite everything, she's scared, Claire. We all are. Claire wiped her eyes. Mom, there's something I need to tell you. Something Monica told me tonight. What? She said Greg has been planning this for months. He's been obsessed with your life insurance money, with your savings. He even talked about ways to make it look like an accident. My stomach turned. Claire continued. She didn't believe him at first. She thought he was just venting, just frustrated. But after the gas can, after the texts, she started to realize he was serious. And now she's terrified he's going to come after all of us. I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. Where is she now? At her house. Alone. She wouldn't come with me. She said she deserves whatever happens. I shook my head. No, no one deserves this. We need to bring her here. Claire nodded. I'll call her. Try to convince her. But before she could pull out her phone, the cabin went dark. The lamp, the porch light, everything. We were plunged into complete darkness. Claire grabbed my arm. Mom, what's happening? I don't know. Then, from outside, a voice, familiar, cold. Margaret. I know you're in there. Greg's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. I could hear him walking around the cabin, his footsteps slow and deliberate, circling like a predator. Claire's grip on my arm tightened. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. Mom, what do we do? I forced myself to stay calm. We stay quiet. We stay away from the windows. And we call for help. I pulled out my phone, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. The screen lit up my face, and Claire whispered urgently, Turn it off! He'll see the light! I dimmed the screen and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered immediately, and I whispered as quietly as I could. This is Margaret Holloway. I'm at the safe house. Greg is outside. He's trying to get in. We're sending units now. Stay on the line. Stay away from the doors and windows. I held the phone against my chest and motioned for Claire to follow me. We moved toward the bedroom, where Theo was sleeping. I opened the door carefully, praying he wouldn't wake up. He was still curled up under the quilt, Captain tucked beside him, his face peaceful in sleep. Claire and I stepped inside, and I closed the door as quietly as I could. From outside, Greg's voice came again, louder this time. I just want to talk, Margaret. That's all. Just a conversation. You don't have to hide. I pressed my back against the wall, my heart hammering. Claire was beside me, tears streaming down her face. I put my arm around her and pulled her close. A sound. Breaking glass. He'd smashed one of the front windows. My breath caught. He was inside. Footsteps in the main room. Slow. Searching. Margaret, I know you're here, and I know Claire's with you. I saw her car outside. Claire covered her mouth with her hand, stifling a sob. I heard him moving through the cabin, opening doors, checking rooms. He was getting closer. The bedroom door was the last one at the end of the hall. It wouldn't take him long. I looked around the room, desperate for a way out. There was one window, small and high, covered with a curtain. I moved toward it as quietly as I could and pulled the curtain back. The window was locked, but I could see the forest beyond, dark and thick with trees. If we could get out, we could run. I fumbled with the lock, my fingers clumsy with fear. It clicked open. I lifted the window slowly, inch by inch, trying not to make a sound. But the old frame groaned. Greg's footsteps stopped. Then they quickened. He was running. I grabbed Theo, shaking him awake. "Sweetheart, we have to go. Now." He blinked, confused and groggy. "Grandma?" "No time." "Come on." I lifted him through the window, Claire helping me from below. She climbed out next, and I was about to follow when the bedroom door burst open. Greg stood in the doorway, his face twisted with rage. "You're not going anywhere." I froze, half in and half out of the window. Greg took a step forward. "Do you know what you've cost me?" "Everything. My marriage, my reputation, my future." "And for what? Because you were too selfish to share your money?" I found my voice steady despite the terror. "You tried to kill us, Greg. You put a gas can in my car. You tried to burn us alive." He laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "I was trying to scare you. That's all. I thought if you were shaken up enough, you'd finally agree to help us. But you just kept refusing, kept acting like you were better than us." I pulled myself through the window, landing hard on the ground outside. Greg lunged, but I was already gone. Claire grabbed my hand, and we ran. Theo was in her arms, and I could hear him crying, his small voice calling for me. We plunged into the forest, branches tearing at our clothes, roots catching our feet. Behind us, I could hear Greg crashing through the undergrowth, cursing, shouting. We ran until my lungs burned, until my legs felt like they might give out. Then, lights, sirens, red and blue flashing through the trees. The police had arrived. I collapsed against a tree, gasping for air. Claire was beside me, holding Theo tightly. He was sobbing into her shoulder, and I reached over to touch his back, to let him know I was there. Officers swarmed the area, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. I heard shouting, "Hands up! Get on the ground! Now!" And then, silence. Detective Ramos appeared through the trees, his face grim. "We've got him! You're safe!" I sank to the ground, relief washing over me like a wave. Claire knelt beside me, and we held each other, trembling, crying, alive. Theo looked up at me, his face streaked with tears. "Grandma, are we okay now?" I pulled him into my arms and held him close. "Retry, continue till the end. Yes, sweetheart, we're okay now." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. Because the fear, the betrayal, the knowledge of what Greg had tried to do, that wouldn't disappear just because he was in handcuffs. That would stay with us. Maybe forever. The days after Greg's arrest blurred together like watercolors left in the rain. There were statements to give, paperwork to sign, phone calls from lawyers and social workers, and well-meaning friends who'd heard about what happened. Monica called once. Just once. Her voice was hollow, scraped clean of anything recognizable. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have believed you." I didn't know what to say to her. Part of me wanted to rage, to tell her that her doubt had nearly cost me and Theo our lives. But another part of me, the part that remembered holding her as a baby, that remembered teaching her to tie her shoes and ride a bike, that part just felt sad. "I know, honey. I know." She hung up without saying anything else. Claire told me later that Monica had filed for divorce, that she'd moved in with a friend, that she couldn't look at herself in the mirror without breaking down. I felt for her. I did. But I also knew that some choices leave scars that never fully heal. Greg was charged with attempted murder, criminal trespass, stalking, and a list of other offenses I couldn't keep straight. His bail was denied. Detective Ramos told me he'd likely spend the next decade, maybe more, behind bars. "Good," Ruth had said when I told her. "Let him rot." But I didn't feel satisfaction. I just felt tired. Tired and old and grateful to still be breathing. Theo had nightmares for weeks. He'd wake up crying, calling for me, asking if the bad man was coming back. I'd hold him and rock him and tell him over and over that he was safe, that Grandma wouldn't let anything happen to him. Slowly, gradually, the nightmares became less frequent. He started smiling again, started playing again, started being a kid again. Claire brought him over to my house one Saturday afternoon, a month after everything had happened. The three of us sat in the backyard, the same backyard where I'd planted tomatoes, and watched my daughters grow up. Theo ran around chasing butterflies, Captain tucked under his arm. "I can't believe we're here," Claire said quietly. "After everything, we're just sitting in the sun like it's a normal day." I looked at her. "Maybe that's the point. Maybe normal is what we fight for." She nodded, her eyes distant. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "That voice. The one that warned you. Do you ever think about it? Every day. Do you think it was real?" I watched Theo laughing, his face bright and open and alive. "I think something protected us that day. Whether it was instinct or intuition or something beyond this world, I don't know. But I'm grateful for it." Claire smiled. "Me too." That night, after they left, I sat alone in my living room. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked to the mantel, where I kept a photo of my husband, taken years ago when his hair was still dark and his smile came easy. I traced the frame with my fingers. "Was it you?" I whispered. "Did you warn me?" There was no answer, just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. But I felt something, a warmth, a presence, something that told me I wasn't as alone as I thought. I picked up Captain from where Theo had left him on the couch. The toy was battered, missing an arm, its paint chipped and faded. I turned it over in my hands. There were still no batteries inside, no explanation for how it had spoken, no rational reason for what had happened. And maybe that was okay. Maybe some things didn't need explanations. I set Captain back down and walked to my desk. I pulled out a piece of paper and a pen, and I started to write. Not for a court, not for the police, but for myself, for Theo, for my daughters. I wrote about trust and betrayal, about fear and courage, about the voices that warn us and the choices we make when we listen. I wrote about how love isn't always enough to protect us, how family can hurt us deeper than strangers ever could, how survival sometimes means letting go of people we thought would always be there. And I wrote about gratitude. Gratitude for the warning I received. Gratitude for the people who believed me. Gratitude for the second chance I was given. When I finished, the sun was coming up. I folded the paper carefully and placed it in an envelope. On the front, I wrote, "For Theo, when he's old enough to understand." I sealed it and tucked it into a drawer. Then I made myself a cup of tea and sat on the porch, watching the sky turn from black to gray to gold. The world was waking up. And so was I. A week later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Monica. The handwriting was shaky, the paper stained with what looked like tears. "Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I'll ever forgive myself. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. How I chose him over you. How I let my fear and my pride blind me to the truth. You almost died because I didn't listen. Theo almost died. And I have to live with that for the rest of my life. I'm in therapy now, trying to figure out how I became someone who could turn her back on her own mother. It's hard. It hurts. But I'm trying. I don't know if you'll ever want to see me again. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. But if you ever do, I'll be here. I'll be waiting. I love you, Mom. I always have. Even when I didn't show it. Monica." I read the letter 3 times. Then I set it down on the table and stared out the window. Forgiveness wasn't something I could force. It wasn't something I could schedule or plan. But maybe, someday, it would come. For now, I folded the letter and put it in the same drawer as the one I'd written for Theo. 2 stories. 2 pieces of the same broken thing. Maybe one day they'd fit together again, or maybe they wouldn't. Either way, I would survive. That's what I'd learned. That survival isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and moving forward anyway. It's about listening to the voices that warn you, even when they don't make sense. It's about protecting what matters, even when it costs you everything. The following Sunday, Claire and Theo came over again. This time, Ruth joined us. We sat around my kitchen table, the one I'd inherited from my mother, the one that had seen decades of meals and fights and laughter. We ate roast chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans from my garden. Theo told jokes he'd learned at school, most of them nonsensical, all of them making us laugh. For a few hours, we were just a family. Imperfect, scarred, but together. After they left, I stood in the doorway and watched them drive away. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I thought about Greg, locked in a cell somewhere, paying for what he'd done. I thought about Monica, alone in her friend's apartment, trying to piece herself back together. I thought about the voice that had saved me, the warning that had come from nowhere and everywhere at once, and I thought about Theo, about his laughter, his resilience, his ability to keep playing even after everything he'd been through. If I'd learned anything from all of this, it was that life doesn't wait for us to be ready. It doesn't pause for our grief, or our fear, or our doubt. It just keeps moving. And we have to choose. Every single day, we have to choose. To trust or to hide. To forgive or to hold on. To listen or to ignore. I chose to listen, and it saved my life. I walked back inside, locked the door, and turned on the lights. The house felt warm, safe, mine. I picked up Captain from the couch and placed him on the shelf next to the photo of my husband. A strange little guardian, a reminder. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard it one more time. Not out loud. Not through a toy, but in my mind, in my heart. A voice, soft and familiar. "You're stronger than you know, Margaret." I smiled in the darkness. I know now. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night without fear. Because I'd faced the worst. I'd survived the unthinkable. And I'd learned that even in the darkest moments, even when the people we love turn against us, there are still voices worth listening to. Still warnings worth heeding. Still reasons to keep going. 3 months later, I received a call from Detective Ramos. "Margaret, I wanted to update you. Greg pled guilty to all charges. He's been sentenced to 15 years. No chance of parole for at least 10. I closed my eyes, letting the news settle over me. "Thank you for letting me know. There's one more thing." "What?" "He asked his lawyer to deliver a message to you." I stiffened. "What message?" "He said he's sorry, that he never meant for things to go as far as they did, that he was desperate and made terrible choices." The detective paused. "I told the lawyer you didn't have to hear it if you didn't want to, but I thought you should know." I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, "Tell him I heard it. But tell him sorry doesn't undo what he did. It doesn't erase the fear. It doesn't bring back the trust." "Understood." We hung up, and I sat there for a long time, thinking. Sorry. Such a small word for such a big betrayal. But maybe that was the point. Some things are too broken to be fixed with words. Some wounds leave scars that never fade. And that's okay. Because scars are proof that we survived, that we fought, that we're still here. I walked to the window and looked out at the street. Kids were riding bikes. Neighbors were mowing lawns. Life was moving forward. And so was I. That evening, I called Monica. She answered on the third ring, her voice tentative. "Mom?" I took a deep breath. "I got your letter." There was a pause. "Oh, I'm not ready to forgive you yet. I need you to know that." "I understand. But I'm not cutting you out either. I'm just asking you to give me time." "Okay." "Okay." We were both quiet for a moment. Then I said, "I love you, Monica. Even when I'm angry. Even when I'm hurt." "I love you." Her voice broke. "I love you too, Mom." We hung up, and I felt something shift inside me. Not healing, not yet. But the beginning of it. A crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. And that was enough. For now, that was enough. Christmas came. Claire, Theo, and Ruth joined me at my house. Monica called to wish me a Merry Christmas, and we talked for 10 minutes. It was awkward and stilted and painful, but it was something. Theo opened his presents with the kind of joy only children can manage. He got a new toy robot, red this time, with both arms intact. He named it Commander and immediately started a battle between Commander and Captain. I watched him play, and I felt a swell of gratitude so overwhelming it brought tears to my eyes. Because he was here, he was safe, he was happy, and so was I. That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat by the fireplace with a glass of wine. I looked at Captain sitting on the shelf, his chipped paint catching the glow of the flames. "Thank you," I whispered, "for whatever you are, for whatever you did. Thank you." The fire crackled. The house settled. And somewhere, in the space between logic and faith, I felt a presence. Warm, protective, eternal. I didn't need to understand it. I just needed to be grateful for it. As the new year approached, I made a resolution. Not to forget what had happened, but to stop letting it define me. I was Margaret Holloway. I was 72 years old. I was a mother, a grandmother, a survivor. And I was still writing my story. One day at a time. One choice at a time. One voice at a time. Because in the end, that's all we have. The voices that guide us. The people who love us. The moments that matter. And the courage to keep going, even when the road ahead is uncertain. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if Monica and I will ever fully repair what was broken. I don't know if Theo will remember the fear, or if it will fade into the background of his childhood like a bad dream. But I know this. I listened to the warning. I got out of that car. And I'm still here. That's the lesson I want to leave behind. Not that life is safe. Not that people will always choose you. Not that love is enough to protect you from harm. But that even in the darkest moments, even when the voice that warns you doesn't make sense, even when the people you trust turn against you, you have a choice. You can listen to the fear and let it paralyze you, or you can listen to the voice that tells you to survive, and you can choose to keep going. That's what I did. And if you're reading this, if you're hearing my story, I hope you'll do the same. Because life is fragile, family is complicated, and sometimes the voice that saves you comes from the most unexpected place. So listen, pay attention, trust your instincts, and when that voice tells you to get out of the car, don't hesitate. Just go. Because your life might depend on it. And you, like me, like Theo, like everyone who's ever faced betrayal and fear and impossible choices, you deserve to survive. You deserve to keep going. You deserve to write the next chapter of your story. So write it. Live it. And never ever ignore the voice that's trying to save you, even if it comes from a toy with a missing arm, even if it doesn't make sense, even if no one else believes you. Listen and survive. That's my story. That's my lesson. And that's my gift to you. Now go. Live your life. Protect what matters. And remember that even in the darkest moments, there's always a voice trying to guide you home. You just have to be brave enough to listen. Thank you for hearing my story. Thank you for walking this journey with me. And if you found meaning in it, if it touched you or helped you or reminded you that you're not alone, then share it. Tell someone. Leave a comment about what spoke to you. Because stories like this, stories of survival and courage and unexpected grace, they're meant to be shared. They're meant to remind us that we're all connected, that we all face darkness, and that we all have the strength to find our way through. Wherever you're watching from, wherever you are in your own journey, I hope you remember this. You are stronger than you know. You are loved more than you realize. And when that voice calls out to warn you, when that instinct tells you something's wrong, when that feeling in your gut says to run, don't ignore it. Listen. Because it might just save your life. And your life, like mine, like Theo's, like every life that's ever been threatened or broken or rebuilt, your life is worth saving, so save it. Protect it. Cherish it. And never let anyone, not family, not fear, not anything, convince you that you're not worth fighting for. You are. You always have been. And you always will be. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being here.